The hearing will come to order. Good afternoon. This is the third hearing in our bipartisan investigation into prescription drug pricing. Today, we will focus on Valeant Pharmaceuticals and 4 drugs it controls: Cyprine, Cupramine, Nitropress, and Isoprel. These drugs had been affordable and easy to obtain for decades, but after Valeant acquired them, their prices went through the roof. For example, Nitropress, used to treat dangerous cardiac conditions and typically found on hospital crash carts, cost about $215 per vial at the time of its acquisition by Valeant. The very day the deal closed, Valeant hiked the price to about $650 and later to $880, a 310% increase. The price increases for the other 3 drugs were even worse: 720% for Isoprel, almost 3,200% for Cyprine, and nearly 6,000% for Cupramine. As we will hear from the witnesses on our first panel, these enormous and unwarranted price hikes have had far-ranging and severe impacts on patients, hospitals, and our healthcare system. Valeant is much larger and more established than either of the companies once headed by Martin Shkreli that were the focus of our last hearing. Like Turing and Retrovin, Valeant also captured decades-old drugs and charged unjustified prices, but with far broader implications. In fact, it is telling that both Valeant and Mr. Shkreli identified the same 2 drugs for price manipulation. In 2012, Mr. Shkreli negotiated a deal, which ultimately fell through, to buy Cupramine and Cyprine from Valeant. Around the same time, Valeant was analyzing just how high a price increase it could impose on both of these drugs. Valeant's monopoly model operates at the expense of real people. Over the course of our investigation, individuals from across the nation have shared their stories with us. Just last week, a mother called us about her son, a young man with a disability who has been on Cyprine for many years and now is on week 4 and counting without medication, which we know can have serious consequences for his health. Valeant's price hikes have made life-saving medications inaccessible for some patients who desperately need them. Now, the company is quick to point to Valeant's Coverage Plus program it instituted, claiming that this program helps, quote, ensure patients have access to the medication they need, end quote. Testimonials, however, paint a very different picture. Many people don't even qualify, and those who may be eligible face a program that is inefficient, difficult to navigate, slow, and often too late. Behind the scenes, Valeant documents show that the program was designed to benefit Valeant, the company, and to provide patient assistance only as a last resort. Valeant has also stated that its price hikes were driven by the need to make, quote, a reasonable return, end quote, and to ensure that its, quote, business is sustainable, end quote. Indeed, this is exactly the standard line they gave to one of our witnesses, Berna Heyman, when she wrote to CEO Michael Pearson to ask why Valeant had increased the price of the medication she needs to control her Wilson disease. Mrs. Heyman raised the right question. Valeant spent nothing at all to develop the decades-old drug Mrs. Heyman requires, and no change in the drug's formulation explains the price hike. It costs Valeant just a penny or two for every dollar it makes on these 4 medications. Our investigation has revealed that Valeant has already recovered the full cost of acquiring these 4 drugs, and the cost of manufacturing them is dwarfed by the net revenue they generate. It is also apparent that these medications make an outsized contribution to the company's net income. We can find nothing to explain these dramatic price increases beyond Valeant's desire to take advantage of monopoly drugs. Its price gouging strategy appears to be based on careful study of the FDA approval process. The company knows it often takes years before genetic competitors can clear the hurdles imposed by that process to enter the market and to compete. During that period, Valeant exploits its de facto monopoly. To protect the American public, we must act to address these market failures. Our hearing today, and indeed our investigation, are intended to produce policy reforms such as the legislation I've introduced with the ranking member to fast-track the approval of certain generics, especially those that could compete with decade-old drugs that are vulnerable to abusive pricing, as we have seen from Valeant and certain other companies. That is our goal. I look forward to the statement of our ranking member, Senator McCaskill, who has been such a leader on this issue.